Some mysteries from the past are so old that we'll probably never solve them. It's not because we don't want to, it's just that these events happened so long ago that it's impossible to investigate them properly. When something took place decades or even centuries back, we can't interview witnesses or piece together the full story. That's why so many historical mysteries remain unsolved. But in a way, isn't that part of the fun? Sure, we'd love to know the truth behind these strange happenings, but the guessing and imagining make for great debates and conversations with friends. Today we're diving into 10 fascinating mysteries that seem destined to stay unsolved forever. From the paranormal to the downright bizarre and creepy, these stories have left us with more questions than answers. And unless you're feeling inspired to play detective after watching this video, they'll likely stay that way. Ready to explore the unknown? Let's jump in. Hi, I'm Alina. Welcome back to my channel. In the summer of 1977, a woman in the quiet town of Circleville, Ohio, received a strange anonymous letter. The handwriting was messy and the message was chilling. Someone had been watching her house, knew she had children, and was aware of a secret affair she was having with the local superintendent. Understandably terrified, the woman felt her family was being targeted. But this was only the beginning. A few weeks later, another letter arrived, this time addressed to her husband. The writer revealed the affair, even urged him to kill both his wife and the school superintendent. When the husband didn't act on a suggestion, a third letter came, pressuring him to take violent action. Furious, the husband armed himself with a gun and stormed out, telling people he was going to confront the letter writer, implying he knew who it was. But on his way, tragedy struck. His car veered off the road in a horrific one-car accident and he was killed. Even after his death, the mysterious letters didn't stop. Over the next 2 decades, dozens of Circleville residents began receiving these unsettling messages. Each letter revealed personal details about the recipient, information that seemed impossible for a stranger to know. Many letters included wild accusations and even direct threats of violence, spreading fear throughout the community. The police launched an investigation, but despite their efforts, they never identified the writer or their motives. To this day, the Circleville Letters remain an unsolved mystery, leaving the town with unanswered questions about who could have orchestrated such a sinister campaign. On August 20, 1966, a young boy flying a kite stumbled upon something shocking. On a remote hill outside Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, he found the bodies of 2 men lying side by side. The boy rushed down the hill to alert the police, but because the terrain was so rugged, it took until the next day for rescues and coroners to reach the scene. When they finally got there, they found a very strange sight. Both men were dressed in formal suits, wearing waterproof coats and had lead eye masks on their faces. These masks that looked like something you'd wear to block radiation seemed out of place on a hill. Beside them were an empty water bottle, a pocket containing 2 damp towels, and a small notebook with some cryptic notes written in Portuguese. The notes gave time instructions that roughly translated to 4:30 p.m. be at the designated location, 6:30 ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal with mask. This odd message left investigators puzzled. The men were eventually identified as Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana, 2 electronics technicians from Brazil. Their families had reported they had last been seen 3 days before the boy discovered their bodies. An autopsy might have provided answers, but delays at the Rio de Janeiro coroner's office meant the bodies weren't examined right away. By the time the autopsy was conducted, their internal organs had decomposed too much to determine whether they had consumed anything unusual. To this day, this case remains an eerie and unsolved mystery, leaving people wondering what really happened on that remote hill. Sometime way back in the middle of the 1100s, 2 strange children suddenly appeared in a tiny village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. These kids were unlike anyone the villagers had ever seen. They had green-tinted skin, spoke in a completely unfamiliar language and seemed utterly out of place. Based on their looks and ages, people guessed they were brother and sister. What really baffled everyone was their unusual behavior. The kids wouldn't eat anything except raw broad beans. Even more mysterious, no one had any idea where they come from. They seemed to have just wandered into Woolpit out of thin air. Sadly, the boy was sick and didn't survive long after arriving in the village. The girl, however, recovered and slowly adapted to her new life in the village. Over time, her green skin faded back into a normal color. She learned English and was eventually baptized into the local church. Once she could speak English, she told the villagers a story that left them stunned. She claimed she came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never shone. The land was always in twilight, and everything around her was green. This strange tale left people scratching their heads for centuries. It's hard to know what really happened, since the story dates back nearly 8,000 years ago. Historians believed it occurred during King Stephen's reign, 1135 to 1154, but even that isn't completely certain. The mystery of the green children of Woolpit remains unsolved, but it's one of those eerie legends. It makes you wonder what else might be hiding in history's shadows. On December 4, 1872, sailors in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores Islands, a few hundred miles west of Portugal, stumbled upon an eerie sight, the Mary Celeste. This ship, built in Canada and owned by an American shipping company, was meant to be sailing to Europe. About a month earlier, on November 7, it had departed New York City, loaded with a valuable cargo of alcohol destined for Genoa, Italy. When the Canadian ship found the Mary Celeste, it was adrift, but in good condition. The cargo of alcohol was untouched, and the ship's supplies were still fully stocked. There was no sign that the crew had run out of food or water. Even stranger, all the crew's personal belongings were left undisturbed, as if they had vanished into thin air. The ship's log offered to help in solving the mystery. The last entry was from 10 days earlier, and there were no signs of distress. The Mary Celeste was still seaworthy, with some sails partially raised. However, its lifeboat was missing, hinting that the crew might have abandoned ship for some unknown reason. But why? There were no signs of a storm or damage, and the ship hadn't been attacked. The crew, who had signed up in New York for this voyage, were never seen or heard from again. Theories about their disappearance include mutiny, piracy, or even an insurance scam. But with no solid evidence, the fate of the Mary Celeste crew remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. The fate of the Mary Celeste crew remains one of history's greatest mysteries. On December 15, 1900, a steamship called Arctur was sailing from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Leith, Scotland, when its crew noticed something strange. The lighthouse on the remote Flannan Isles in Scotland wasn't working properly during a rough storm. This was unusual, as the lighthouse was critical for guiding ships in the area. When the Arctur docked in Leith 3 days later, the crew reported the issue to the Northern Lighthouse Board. Concerned, the board quickly sent a relief ship to the Flannan Isles to investigate. However, bad weather delayed the ship, and it didn't reach the lighthouse until December 26. The relief crew expected to find the 3 lighthouse keepers, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, carrying out their duties. But when they arrived at noon on December 26, the keepers were nowhere to be found. From the start, things felt off. The lighthouse's flagpole was bare. Supplies that should have been left out for restocking weren't there, and no one was in sight on the island. When the crew entered the lighthouse, the mystery deepened. The entrance gate was closed, the beds were unmade, and the clock in the restroom had stopped. The lamps inside had been cleaned and refilled, ready for use, but they hadn't been taken anywhere. It was as if the keepers had vanished into thin air. No trace of the men was ever found, not on the island or washed ashore. Their disappearance remains unexplained. Some theories suggest they may have decided to leave the island and start fresh elsewhere, while others think a sudden tragedy, like being swept into the sea, could have occurred. But to this day, their fate is a complete mystery. In 1949, a Russian geologist named Vadim Kolpakov made an incredible discovery in a remote part of southeastern Siberia near Lake Baikal. He stumbled upon a massive strange crater, now known as the Patomskiy Crater. What makes this discovery so fascinating is that scientists still don't know how this giant structure came to be. Shattered limestone blocks sitting on the slope of Russia's Potom highlands in the Irkutsk region. At its base, it measures about 520 feet across, and its outer ridges rise over 40 feet high. At the center of the crater is a cone-shaped hill with a circular crown almost as tall as the outer walls. It holds more than 8 million cubic feet of material and weighs roughly 1 million tons. Despite its enormous size and unusual appearance, it seems completely out of place in the surrounding landscape. Scientists have been scratching their heads ever since, trying to figure out where it came from. There are several theories. Some suggest it was caused by a meteorite crashing into Earth. Others think it might have formed due to volcanic activity or an unusual flow of natural gas from deep underground. One popular idea is that the Patomskiy Crater is connected to the Tunguska meteorite, which exploded nearby in the early 1900s. However, this doesn't quite add up. Scientists believe the Patomskiy Crater is about 300 years old, much older than the Tunguska event. Despite decades of study, the true origin of the Patomskiy Crater remains a mystery. Researchers continue to observe and analyze it, hoping to uncover its secrets, but so far the answers have remained elusive. On December 5, 1945, a group of 5 US Navy Avenger torpedo bombers called Flight 19 vanished without a trace during a training mission near the coast of Florida. The planes had taken off from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, but something went terribly wrong. The lead navigator in the first plane became confused about their location, and the group lost their way as they tried to head back to land. Sadly, none of the planes or the 14 crew members aboard them were ever seen again. To make things even worse, a rescue plane was sent out to find Flight 19. Shockingly, it also disappeared, taking all 13 of its crew members with it. Over the years, people have come up with all sorts of theories about what happened. Some blame the Bermuda Triangle, claiming it's a mysterious zone where strange things happen. Others suggest far-fetched ideas like alien abductions. However, the most logical explanation is that Flight 19's leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, got disoriented when his compasses failed. He may have mistaken some small islands for the Florida Keys and flew further out to sea away from safety. As for the rescue plane, the Navy believes it was destroyed by a mid-air explosion during its search. What makes this story so haunting is that no wreckage, debris, or remains from either Flight 19 or the rescue plane have ever been found. Nothing washed up on shore, and no clues have ever surfaced. To this day, the disappearance of these planes and their crews remains an unsolved mystery. On the night of November 22, 1987, Chicago TV viewers experienced something truly bizarre. An unidentified person hijacked 2 broadcast signals in the city, and their identity remains a mystery to this day. The first incident happened at 9 p.m. during WGN TV's nightly newscast. As the sports segment aired, the screen suddenly switched to a strange figure wearing a Max Headroom mask. The masked person swayed wildly in front of a metal panel, while a loud buzzing noise played in the background. The eerie interruption lasted only 17 seconds, thanks to WGN's quick-thinking engineers, who regained control of the broadcast. But that wasn't the end of it. 2 hours later, a second, much longer interruption occurred. This time, the target was WTTW, a PBS station airing an episode of Doctor Who, titled Horror of Feng Rock. Unlike WGN, WTTW didn't have engineers on duty, so the hijacker stayed on air for over 90 seconds. The masked figure made bizarre references to topics like New Coke, the cartoon Clutch Cargo, and a local sportscaster. The weirdness escalated when a woman's hand appeared, spanking the figure's bare backside with a fly swatter as he yelled, "They're coming to get me." After that, the hijacker ended the broadcast and disappeared, despite investigations by the Federal Communications Commission, in short, FCC. The identity and motives of the people behind this strange stunt remain unknown. Now, nearly 40 years later, it seems unlikely we'll ever learn who was responsible. While the incident might seem like a harmless prank, it raised serious concerns at the time. Broadcasters and the FCC worried that such hacks could be used for more dangerous purposes, a fear that's only grown in the era of social media and viral content. The Norse settled in Greenland around the 10th century, or possibly even earlier. For about 500 years, they maintained a colony on a harsh, unforgiving land. Then, near the end of the 15th century, the colony vanished completely. The people disappeared, leaving behind their supplies and belongings as if they simply walked away. Over 500 years later, historians and archaeologists are still baffled by the mystery of what happened. Many theories try to explain why the Greenland colony was abandoned. Some suggest that environmental changes made survival too difficult, forcing the settlers to leave. Others believe the colony might have been attacked by local Inuit groups, leading to death or captives being taken. Another theory is that the settlers grew frustrated by lack of support from their fellow Norse in Europe and decided to seek better opportunities elsewhere. A plague that swept through Iceland and Norway in the late 15th century might have also played a role, as it left many farms and homes empty. Perhaps the Greenland settlers decided to return to Europe to start over in those abandoned places. What makes the mystery even stranger is how organized the departure seems to have been. If Inuit raids were responsible, the site would likely show signs of violence or chaos. But later Viking sailors found the colony empty yet orderly. Archaeological evidence from the area also shows no signs of attack. Starvation seems unlikely as a reason for leaving. Could the settlers have grown tired of Greenland's harsh conditions and left for better land further south? Were they simply ready to move on? After all these centuries, we may never truly know the answer. The disappearance of the Greenland colony remains one of history's most puzzling mysteries. In July 1518, a woman named Frau Trophea in Strasbourg, which is in modern-day France, started dancing uncontrollably. She danced in the streets for days without stopping, and no one could figure out why she was doing it. Soon, other people joined her, also dancing without explanation. What started as one woman's strange behavior turned into an event where between 50 and 400 people danced together for weeks. It became a weird and unsettling case of mass hysteria. People have wondered why this happened. The most popular theory is that it was some kind of stress-induced mass hysteria. Other ideas include the possibility that the dancers had eaten rye bread infected with a fungus called ergot, which can cause hallucinations and spasms. Some even think there might have been a religious reason behind it. In the end, the mystery remains. Some historical records suggest that some of the dancers might have died from exhaustion after dancing for so long. Though we can guess at the reasons, the exact cause of the dancing plague of 1518 will likely never be known. It remains one of the strangest events in history, almost certainly caused by mass hysteria, not aliens or anything like that. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!